I'd been riding for a little over 30 hours. I had 700 kilometers on the Garmin already. The midway point of the ride was behind me. The biggest mountain of the ride was behind me. And Paris lay in front of me. By all accounts, I was doing amazingly well. I was very happy with myself and feeling great. And I was projecting an amazing finishing time for myself. 1 hour later, I couldn't lift my head high enough to see the road in front of me. The muscles in my neck had given out, and there was no way I could, all that amazing feeling that I'd had been replaced by pain and questions. How was I going to make it to the end? Was I going to finish? And what was I thinking signing up for this in the first place? And so that's where I want to start. Why? Why do we sign up for these things? And it's a question that I get asked a lot. And to answer it, I think I need to take you back to that hospital room in San Francisco. I was 21 years old, and I was looking down the bed at a flat green sheet where my leg should have been, but wasn't. And I spent 3 weeks in that bed trying to answer questions. Would I walk again? Would I play sports like I always had? And what would my life be like now? And there was no internet or Wi-Fi or smartphones at the time for me to access to answer those questions. And so 3 weeks later, when I was ready to reintegrate into society minus one leg, I had one goal, and it was to walk normally in pants. Walk normally in pants. And so 20 years have come and gone and hundreds of goals, and some of them have been great successes, the type of thing that you put in your FEAT bio and you have Kevin read. And other ones are probably better off being forgotten. But the point is, I'm still setting goals, and they still sometimes have that little twist. And it was John Lennon who said that there are two motivating forces in life, fear and love. And when you hear in pants, that's fear, pure fear. But when you want to talk about this beautiful bike race, I picked that goal out of love. I had a real love for cycling. I loved the idea of doing this epic 1,230 kilometer ride to mark the 20th anniversary of my accident. I loved everything about it. But I have to admit that after 20 years, I had also set a lot of goals out of a deep-rooted fear of being disabled. And so, rolling along that road in France with my head hanging low, like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, there's a potent mix of these feelings, and I can tell you that at that time it was much more fear than love. I was afraid I'd flown all that way, and I wasn't going to finish. It was going to be a DNF. And I hated that story. And I didn't even want to contemplate it, and yet it was all I could think about. And so not knowing what to do, I just kept turning the pedals really slowly. And eventually day turned into night, and it got even harder. If I couldn't see in the day, it was terrible at night. And just at about that moment, a monstrous figure on a bike rolled past, and he was wearing an Ireland jersey. His name was Paddy. And I saw my opportunity. He's a big fella, and I figured I'd better get behind him and try to draft for a little bit. And so I put in my best 2 or 3 minutes worth of effort, and when I finally couldn't keep it up anymore and I sat up, he sat up too and came beside me, looked over, and he said, "You've got the Schwimmer's neck, laddie. You can't even hold your own head up. Why don't we just pull off to the side of the road here and see if we can't fix you up?" And I had never heard of Schwimmer's neck, but moments later he had a bike tube threaded through the back of my helmet and looped under both armpits. And we twisted that helmet 15 times, creating this glorious, excruciating tension. There was just enough to hold my head up, a couple of degrees. And we were able to continue. And so we kept going, and later on that night, it was maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, we rolled into a little town called La Tanière. And this is why you guys all need to train and go do this race. the scene there was just amazing. The local mechanic, a guy named Paul, had set up a table and a tent, and he was serving crepes and coffee and hot chocolate and pastries to this like United Nations of riders. And so we sat down, and within seconds, Patty had fallen asleep and spilt his coffee all over his crotch. And Paul looked at me and he said, "Dormir?" And then he whisked us down the road to his living room where he'd set up a dormitory for riders. And that moment in La Tanière was just such an amazing moment in any experience. And it brought back the love for me in amongst all that pain that I had been feeling. It brought back that love of adventure. And then I slept for 90 minutes. And it was the greatest sleep of my entire life. And then the alarm went off. And it was the worst alarm of my entire life. But it was the alarm of the day that I was going to finish PVP. And I climbed back onto my bike with about 225 kilometers left, and I grappled with fear. On the one hand, it was keeping me going, and so maybe fear was good. But on the other hand, it was causing enormous anxiety over the potential DNF, and so maybe fear was bad. And you'll hear a lot of endurance athletes talk about what they learn while they're out there. And I can tell you that what I learned, looking back now, is that just like I was at one time afraid to stand in front of you guys wearing shorts, there was a time when I was really afraid of being disabled. And PVP helped cure that. And if you guys believe what John Lennon said, and that sometimes you feel motivated by fear, I want to tell you a couple of things. You're normal. You can conquer it. And you can go back to being driven by love. Love of the game, love of the challenge that you put in front of yourself. And please don't ever stop challenging yourselves. And thanks for coming out and supporting all of us.